Shel C from Paper Octio Studio, and I hope everyone's having a great day. I am. I'm sharing with you the Pick a Stick Challenge for April. You know, that's the Fab Four Creates group, myself and the three others. And we do this monthly challenge where we give 10 prompts that are randomly drawn by sticks. The sticks of fate, I call them. And so this is my one for April. So the first prompt was to use a water-soluble pencil. So I decided to use some Inktense pencils. It didn't say what to use the pencil for, so I decided to draw. I was out walking this morning, and I really am always impressed by the beautiful surroundings that I live in. It's very different from where I grew up as a child, where there was a lot of evergreen trees and stuff like that. It's just got different plants and a different environment, and I really love it. I will probably never move. I just love the desert. So I decided to draw a saguaro cactus, and you know, there's a lot of them out there where I was walking, and so yeah. Oh, this is my oops. I left it in. I spilled gesso all over my hand. It just came out and attacked me. I don't know. That's just what happened. But I wanted to use the gesso to kind of lighten up. I was the paper that I started with is a piece that I tore out from that journal where I had just thrown some extra paint. So I needed to go over the paint, so I wanted to just add some gesso so that the blue wouldn't be showing through where I had drawn and blended with the ink tints. And then I'm also going to use a brown pencil just to draw some ground, because you know how I feel about things floating. Unless it's an astronaut in space that you've put on your page, it should not be floating. It should have some sort of ground. So I also decided to use the gesso along the bottom there with my finger just to cover up that blue as well. And I'm using a brush, and then also my finger. You know, finger painting is always awesome. So that was my first step. The next step, gosh, I don't have them in front of me. Oh yeah, add mountains or trees. Where I live, outside my window, there's a big range of mountains that they're really beautiful when the sun is setting. They're very like red and gold colors when the sun is setting, and they're basically they don't have a lot of vegetation on them. They're rocks kind of. It's actually called a ridge, but I'm not sure why. I don't know what the difference between a mountain and a ridge is. There are just some ridges there. I don't know. But anyway, I decided to create texture on my page when I was putting in my mountains using my homemade texture paste, which is made out of baby powder, cheap white paint, and a little bit of white school glue. It's getting pretty chunky now. I've had it for a while, but I'm going to use it up. So I applied it with the metal palette knife and scraped in places where the mountains would be going down, and you'll be able to see that when I add color. Right now it just kind of looks like a big white blob. The next step was to stamp into wet gesso. So I got out my heavy gesso, which is a Prima product, and just kind of spread some on, and then I'm adding texture into it by stamping with a background stamp that's just little circles and dots. Again, you can't see it very well on the video, but you'll be able to see it when I start to apply some color. And then up here at the top, I'm using that same heavy gesso to make a little swirly circle, and I'm going to stamp in the middle of it with that swirly stamp, and that's going to be my sunshine. Because in the desert of Arizona, we almost always have sunshine. Almost always. So I think that's very awesome. Then of course I dried it up a little bit because it was all very wet. The next step was to cover over something using black paint or gesso. So this was my opportunity to kind of make my middle ground there, still have a lot of that blue showing from the extra paint that was on the page. Want to cover that up and then start to kind of highlight and shadow by thinning out the paint, going over that texture paste. It gives, like, it makes the paint go into the grooves, and then it looks like highlights and shadows. Does that make sense? I don't know. Am I making sense? I don't know. I'm in a really good mood. I just had homemade vanilla ice cream. You know, vanilla ice cream that you buy in the store just does not taste the same. And Patrick just got it into his head today on a Sunday to make some from Nana's recipe, and man, that was good. So I'm in a really good mood. After I've finished narrating this, I'm going to go get some more, I think. Hopefully there is still some. So that was my black paint or gesso, which in this case it was black paint. The next step was to use pastel chalk in some way. So since I have them, I decided to use these pan pastels, which are a pastel chalk. You could also use stick pastels or even eyeshadow if you were really desperate. That's kind of like chalk. But anyway, I got those out, and now I'm just adding color. And this is really where the predominance of my color is going to come from. I'm going to color the whole page using the pastels and growing right over that acrylic paint and gesso that's on the page. And it worked out really well. These are a good product. Very, very high quality. And I'm really enjoying them when I use them. I mean, I have limited time and limited space, so I don't use them every single time. But every time I get them out, I think to myself, man, I got to use these more. These are so nice. So I'm blending different shades of brown into my mountains to really bring out the texture and to really define that those are separate little ridges of rock sticking up, and just give a lot more visual texture on top of the actual physical texture, because if you run your hand over it, it does actually feel bumpy, but it's just hard to see that on the video. Really into texture lately. I don't know. I like to make things bumpy. And then I'm going to color my sunshine and try to highlight it and shadow it a little bit so that you can see that it's a swirl. A swirly swirl. And then, of course, the sun is shining on top of the mountains, so we got to add a little bit of yellow to the top of the mountains. And then onto my ground. So I left that mid ground very dark so that it gives the impression that the mountains are far away and that the cactus is really up front in the foreground. Add a little bit of green to the cactus, sure, why not? And then I'm going to throw in some green into the mountains as well to give the idea that off in the distance there are more plants and bushes and cactuses that you can't see the shapes of them, but you see the color out there in the landscape. So once I'm done with that, then it's time to do the next step, which is to use some free collage images from the internet. And all I did to find these was nothing special. I just went to Google and I went to Google Images and typed in cactus and then picked a couple little illustrations that I thought were cute. They're clip art that's just out there floating in the internet, where you can just go get it. And so I'm fussy cutting these. And the reason that I leave this in is because one of my viewers asked about fussy cutting and how you do it. So I have a few little tips. Make sure your scissors are sharp, and shorter blades are better than longer blades. And as you're cutting, turn the paper. Don't try to turn your hand to get into stuff. Turn the paper. And also, not to have a lot of excess paper around your image. Like cut off the excess so that you're only dealing with a little bit as you're cutting it off. So those are my tips. I don't know if that helps anyone. I've been cutting out things since I was a child. I mean, literally, I helped my mom and she was a teacher, and I used to cut out all kinds of stuff. So I've always done it, and it never even occurred to me that someone might need tips on that. So I hope that helps. Um, if somebody wants me to get into it deeper, I suppose I can, but it probably just is one of those things that you got to practice. So step 7 was to use cutout words or phrases from a printed source. And this could be anything. It could be a book. It could be a magazine. This little thing happens to be from a magazine, and I had cut it out before. I didn't just cut it out today. I had cut it out before, and it was in a little styrofoam thing that I had, and I thought, that's cool. I like that. Find it. Love it. I like that. So I decided to use that as my step, what were we, 7? Step 7. Step 8 is to use something that another artist gave you. Now I have this little box, this little plastic pencil box, and whenever I do swaps and things, people always send extras. And I do the same thing. I send extras, things that someone might like to use. And so I looked in my box to try to find something, and I found this 3D sticker. I think Peg Robinson gave it to me, but I don't know exactly. But it has a bird and some flowers. And I thought, well, that's a pretty bird, and I can put the bird on the cactus, and then I'll put the flowers because it's spring, and a lot of our cactuses are in bloom. Of course, saguaro cactuses have white flowers, and they don't have any berries. But I liked the sticker, and I thought it looked good, so I just put it on there. That's called artistic license. You can change things when you're an artist, that you don't have to be 100% realistic. That's one of the nice things of being an artist. The next step is to add something metallic. So I got out this Inca Gold, which is like beeswax and mica put in a paste that you can apply. And I'm just applying it everywhere to give some highlights. And it really brings out the mountains and stuff. It really brings everything forward and makes it a lot more dimensional. So that was kind of fun. And step 10, use a die cut. I had this amazing epiphany the other day when I was cutting out letters for another project, which you'll see later. It's a collaboration project, and I have these things. They're this thing called quick cuts, and there's this little handle thing that you use to punch out these die cuts one at a time. So you have to pinch this thing with your hand, and it makes my hand tired, and you can only do it one at a time. And then it occurred to me, these are thinlits. I can put these things right in my die cutting machine. Why didn't I think of that? I don't know. Sometimes I'm not very bright. So I'm showing you that yes, you can cut the entire word one time by running it through your die cutting machine. So yeah, I'm much happier with my quick cuts thing now. I have a lot of little a lot of alphabets, only 4 different fonts of alphabets, and then a lot of other little shapes and things, and I never use it because it just frustrates me to have to pinch with that thing. Man, I'm much happier with it now. So if anyone else never thought of that, I wished I'd thought of it sooner. I hope that helps you. So I am attaching this with matte gel medium. The silly little things keep wanting to move. That's one thing about attaching them with this, but I want it completely sealed down. I didn't want to glue it on. I just wanted it sealed completely. So they keep moving, but it works in the end. Beauty. Find it. Love it. There you have it. So to finish up my page, I'm just adding some shadows with my Stabilo All pencil. And then after that, I'm going to use my Posca black and my Posca white fine tips. I mean, I think y'all would have a heart attack if I didn't do this at this point. You'd be like, has she been body snatched? Is that even Shel? I mean, she's not using the Poscas. What's going on? This cannot be right. You'd probably all call 911 or something. So I'm just going around the edges of my cutout pieces because they're not black enough. When I print something on my inkjet printer, just not black enough. It's got to be blacker. And then of course I'm going to do the same to my cactus that I drew earlier because it's got to blend in with the other two little cactuses that I cut out. So got to do your Posca work, you know, it's just got to happen. Drawing all the little lines around. Oh, and then around there was some rocks, but I added extra rocks just to make it blend in better. And then I have to go in and color those later. Can't have too many rocks, right? Another tip on fussy cutting. On this particular cactus, it had little spines all the way around. I would lose my patience if I had to cut out all those little spines. Same thing with like butterfly antenna, anything that's just a little line, just cut it off and then draw it back in. It's just a line. You don't need it. So I cut off all the little spines sticking out on either side of that cactus and then I just drew them back in. No big deal. And I'm just adding a little bit of color here and there to make it pop out a little bit more. And then of course I'm going and highlighting all the little cactus spines because they do shine in the sun when the sun's shining on them. They definitely do. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe and comment and share and all those things. And also be sure to go check out the other 3 videos linked in the description below of the other people in the Fab 4 who made a video using the same prompts. And theirs will come out completely different. And here's your close-ups. And that's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.